I want you to name one indie game that you played and also tell me the specs. Yes, and I do mean on Steam, okay? Because if I recall correctly, folks, I don't remember indie game need a high-end GPU. Because right now, there's a game that is called 1348 Ex Voto that has been released. And to my understanding, folks, since when does indie games need a high-end GPU? Hollow Knight Silksong, indie game, doesn't need a high-end GPU. My gaming laptop can run it. I'm certain Mugenics doesn't need a high-end GPU as well. Now, let me show you. Sorry I can't make it big, but I'll read it, okay? There are mixed reviews. Remember, 50-50, okay? Now this one, after 4 hours, it says, I truly wish I could recommend it, but unfortunately, in this current state, it's not enjoyable to play. There are far too many bugs and the combat system is either tactical nor fun. It's just clunky and frustrating. Dodging system is bad. And it's always a matter of spamming the attack to break the enemy's guard, who's countering us with the reaction speed of a guy on a 12 lines of cocaine. Like, calm down, bro. Okay, I finally gave up after a boss fight that was absolutely ridiculous against a frantic dress in a white with 2 flails and totally on crack. Looks like the drugs were wild back in 1348. Maybe. The game is beautiful for sure. Exploring is nice, even if it was always just long, empty stretches between fights. But the story isn't original. Basically, save the princess in distress, and the gameplay isn't quite there. Overall, it's not an incredible experience. I'm truly disappointed because I had high expectation for this title. The game should have had a bit more development time and above all, more extensive testing phase. It's always tough to criticize the work of a small indie team who clearly poured so much time and love into their game, but the end result doesn't quite hit the mark. And he showcased his specs, which he got a 4090, folks, and a 13th gen CPU, 64 gigs of RAM. Some people who has high-end GPU, they have no problem. Some people reporting that they have high-end GPU and they have no problem, but there are some that cannot, okay? Remember, here, let me show you the specs. The recommended is RTX 5070 or Radeon RX 7900 GRE. What is that? Anybody knows what the Radeon RX 7900 GRE is? Yeah, some people say they cannot recommend this. Well, some people were lucky enough that there were minor bugs, but there are some who aren't lucky, okay? Let's see the negative. There was a refunded. Of course, there's no controller remapping. The button layout is terrible, unintuitive for me. This is from this one right here. I can read it for you. No choice of upscaler, game default to 33% rendering. So here's the thing, look. Yeah, we're gonna read it again. The world so far, Acts 1, 2, and Part 3 are completely dead and drab. Not in the disease-ridden, war-torn way. Not in a disease-ridden, war-torn way. The story speaks. Most of these negative reviews that you see here, I can bet some of them is performance, okay? I'm not talking about the story or the wokeness, okay? My main concern is the performance. Here, look at this. Really wanted to like this game, but the beginning sequence is so buggy and performance is pretty rough. Combat is a bit janky and the game makes me sad to play. The environment and scenery are beautiful at least. Definitely need more time to be developed. It doesn't matter whether your character is gay or attractive or ugly. Performance, you cannot ignore it, okay? This time I'm gonna put my specs on the screen right here. And tell me, and I want all of you to tell me, do you think my gaming laptop can run 1348 Ex Voto? And before you say this is harassment, you're not allowed to criticize. So you're saying that if a game runs like ass or cannot run at all, I cannot criticize them? This is an indie game. No, generally folks, I don't remember indie games need a high-end GPU. Since when? I played a few indie games, okay? Like for example, Hollow Knight Silksong. It doesn't need a high-end GPU. Terminator 2D No Fate. That's an indie game. Doesn't need a high-end GPU as well. And based on this, I don't think 1348 Ex Voto, I don't know, I could be wrong. Could it be considered an indie game when you need a high-end GPU? Again, folks, there are negative reviews and most of the time, it is performance issue, okay? Let's just put the whole lesbian character out of the way, okay? This is about performance. Since when does this indie game need a 50 series GPU in the recommended and the minimum a 30 series? Because remember, this is indie game we're talking about. And also, to those of you who knows tech, can any of you tell me about this Radeon RX 7900 GRE? How good is that GPU? Let me know in the comments. And for the CPU, so far, the 12600K, this is for the recommended, okay? The i5 12600K, I don't know if that's a real CPU. Put it in the comments, okay? Same goes for the minimum. You need an i5 10600K. What the? I feel like this looks like a high-end GPU for the recommended. I mean, minimum mid-range. I don't know, folks. Could this be considered an indie game with a recommended a high-end GPU? To all developers, including indie, remember, there's a memory pandemic. That's the reason why many gamers are going to indie, because they know that indie games, majority, 9 times out of 10, don't need a high-end GPU to run it. Just like Hollow Knight Silksong or Hollow Knight the first game. It doesn't need a high-end GPU, no?
Supplies and production were vital areas of the war in which the Allies dominated. Relentless Allied bombing runs over Ruhr Valley factories resulted in an increasingly crippled German war machine. Methodical strafing of the railroads and rail yards left behind broken trains stalled on destroyed tracks. Without fuel, Germany's heavy weapons were useless. Its vaunted panzers immobilized and its planes grounded. The German infantry was left to carry on the fight alone.